So I was scrolling through Twitter the other morning looking for something to get me all fired up, you know, all riled up, you know, after my 3 coffees. And sure enough, Twitter's algorithm didn't let me down. I came across this retired American high school teacher turned TikTok sensation explaining the fundamental differences between conservatives and liberals. Now, since the video had so many views, I made the stupid mistake of clicking on it and believing that it would be an earnest attempt to actually describe the differences between the psyche of the average conservative voter and the average liberal, socialist, Democrat voter. Suffice it to say, it most certainly was not an earnest attempt at anything. And I most certainly was riled up. Ooh, I was triggered and all jittery from the coffees. So we're going to take a look at the video now, but let's just get this clear. What annoyed me about it is it's just another example of a person working in education that absolutely has no nuance about anything. They're completely partisan and they're passing that on to the next generation, that way of thinking, that infected way, that poisonous, parasitic way of viewing the world. So here we go. Here goes nothing. Conservatives versus liberals, according to Dr. Dickhead.
Tuckers, like you've heard me say many times, I was a teacher for 40 years. I taught a lot of history and government, U.S. history and government. And I found myself challenged by some classes to bring down the explanation of a concept to the lowest possible level so that everybody in the class could understand before we moved forward. I want to do the same thing right here, right now. I live in a very conservative state that can't get the difference between liberals and conservatives.
So as a teacher, I'm a teacher myself, being reductionist is absolutely very useful for certain things when you're trying to get someone to understand a concept, right? Explaining the difference between conservatives and liberals is a really deep conversation. It really is. And this guy doesn't want it to be because he's sick. And I don't use that term lightly. I actually think he is sick in the sense that what he says, what you're about to see in the video, comes from the mind of somebody who is completely possessed by an ideology or is just extremely narcissistic and Machiavellian to a certain degree. They want to watch the world burn. They want to put their evil out into the world, right, and see what happens, kind of thing. Or it could just be mind-bogglingly, unbelievably stupid. Hopefully he didn't pass on any of this absolute crap to his students while he spent 40 years teaching government and history in high schools, though I find that very hard to believe.
I live in a very conservative state that can't get the difference between liberals and conservatives. And I'm surrounded by people that need the lowest possible denominator. They need the simplest explanation.
I live in a very conservative state and therefore I am surrounded by people who need the lowest possible, the simplest possible explanation, the lowest common denominator, because I'm superior to them. What a disgusting way to look at the world. Millions of idiots are reposting this on Twitter and on TikTok as though it's a genius analogy. I think I stumbled across it because I follow Mark Hamill on Twitter, and not because I like Mark Hamill, but because he is just he is the archetype of a virtue signaler, of a boomer, irrelevant virtue signaler. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but I think Mark Hamill retweeted the video with just the word this.
And I'm going to call on someone who I consider one of our foremost social philosophers, George Carlin, for his explanation. Conservatives care about profit. They care about property. Liberals care about people. They want to see the benefit to society. Am I being harsh? No, let's look at present situations.
Am I being harsh? No, you're being retarded. Trying to find a soundbite for the difference between liberals and conservatives. Take a look at the conversation between Jordan Peterson and Jonathan Haidt for the difference between liberals and conservatives. When they talk about disgust reflex, and they talk about orderliness, and they talk about openness, eh? Oh no, the difference between conservatives is they care about profit, and liberals care about people. Conservatives are bad, and liberals are good.
Our Republican administration here in Arizona sold vast tracts of Arizona land to the Saudis, including the water rights in the aquifer that's Arizona's emergency water supply.
Whoa, 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 slow down there. I need you to go on and explain that to me a little slower. I'm a Republican. I don't understand a word of what you just said. Let's reduce it to the lowest common denominator. So I'm going to cherry pick a story in which a Republican administration sold some land to some Saudis or something like that. Well, there's no nuance to that story at all. Also, what? There's no examples in the world of Democrats lacing their own back pockets with public funds, right? No, of course not. Never! Let's not lose sight of what this video was meant to be. The fundamental differences between conservatives and liberals, not what an administration run by Republicans or Democrats do, not cherry-picking scandals and cases of corruption or immoral things that one government has done or another has done. We're talking about the fundamental differences between a conservative or a liberal person, right? Oh yeah, I guess everyone who voted for Trump, they sold all the wells to the Saudis, didn't they? Yeah.
Sold to the Saudis, owned by the Saudis. Now, we're in a 1,200-year drought. When the water from the Colorado dries up, the Saudis will be happy to sell us water, our own water, back at a huge profit to them. We sold our future, we sold our children's future for immediate profit. Conservatives.
This is a puerile, this childish way, this childish tactic that this guy is using to basically prove that everyone who is a conservative is bad. Because the conservative administration sold some land with water on it to Saudis or something. We're not sure. We don't want to get into details. Details they're not important, are they? When basically all you want to say is anyone who doesn't think like you is essentially evil. Let's not get into the evolutionary validity that both conservatives and quote-unquote liberals, I can't believe we still allow them to be called liberals, but whatever. Let's not talk about the validity that both ways of thinking might have in a functioning society. You know, the openness of liberals and wanting progress for society so that things don't stay the same, so that we're always moving forward. Or that conservatives sort of say, well, hang on, if this isn't broke, don't fix it. Hang on, we need to make sure that things are working properly. We can't just continually be looking to smash everything down and change it. Hey, we need to work together. Let's have some empathy for one another, try to understand the validity that both viewpoints, both worldviews, or all the worldviews that we might have in a very plural society might have. No, we don't want to do that. No, we want to watch the world burn, right? We want to say those people are evil. Let's mark them. Let's call them evil. Let's single them out.
In Texas, the largest refineries are now owned by the Saudis. Port Arthur, the refinery, owned by the Saudis. They'll have complete control over it. Our future again sold. Our children's future again sold. They don't care about people. They care about profits.
Oh, great. Another anecdote about a conservative administration in another state who sold something to some Saudis. Well, that's it. That's absolutely clear. Anyone who has conservative views is a fucking idiot. Hey, what about all those factory workers America used to have? Yeah, you know, the ones that lost all their jobs in Democrat-run states that then flipped massively for Donald Trump. What? All those jobs went to Asia. Went to people who worked for what fraction of the wages of American workers? Well, how progressive.
Insulin. And this one goes to my heart because I have a daughter who's a diabetic and she's a nurse and she pays $1,000 every 2 months for her insulin supplies. That's because the pharmaceutical companies are being allowed by conservatives, Republicans, to gouge the heck out of people. The person who invented insulin was a liberal.
So we're on to access to healthcare and more specifically insulin and the inventor of insulin now. Again, stuff that might have to be looked at in, I don't know, some more detail. But no, apparently not. Just means that conservatives are evil. Remember, this video was supposed to be about the fundamental differences between conservatives and liberals. And you're supposed to be breaking it down to the lowest common denominator so that even a thicko Republican could understand it, right? He's trying to cherry pick examples of things that he thinks are bad and that he thinks are consequences of Republican administration's decisions, right? So I don't know, I could start rambling now about the improved living standards and purchase power under Donald Trump's administration. Would he feel that that's a legitimate thing to talk about in an explanation of the fundamental differences between a liberal or conservative person? So healthcare and certain medications might be more expensive in, say, conservative-run states some of the time. But what about the fact that the average family, the average middle-class family under Donald Trump's presidency was $6,000 a year better off? What do you say about that? Maybe they could get better access to better healthcare. Maybe the left's feverish obsession with equity, with equality of outcome, could actually be harming people.
And he sold the rights to insulin to the public for $1. That's a liberal. So you have to make up your mind. What do you want? People or profits? And when the water gets sold out from underneath you and you can't afford medical care and you voted Republican, then have the day you deserve.
Yeah, so that's the video that everyone thinks is really great. The guy really nailing it, the difference between conservatives and liberals. Basically, liberals are good and conservatives are bad, and they sell your water to the Saudis and you won't have insulin. So is this guy's take just dumb or is it evil? Let me know in the comments. Let me know what you think.